After reading these 11 books, I literally increased my income from $50,000 a year to $300,000 a year. And in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly why you should read these books. My name's Chris Molinar, and if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so you can get notified every time I post a video live just like this to help you crush it in your real estate business. But if you have read some of these books before and you haven't gotten the results, just remember that you can't just read a book once and expect to have it make a big difference in your life, especially if you haven't applied what you've learned. Number one, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. This is an amazing book to help you increase your confidence and to help change your mindset when it comes to salesmanship. And I've literally read this book over and over and over and over again. I even took some of the chapters and read those specific chapters over and over again. I've even recorded parts of myself reading this book and listened to it as I was driving. And I can tell you this book is probably one of the best renowned sales books. And I literally had a guy come up to me on an airplane who saw me reading this book and said, I read that book every day for an entire year. And that was the first year that I made $800,000 in my career. Number two, Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. This is probably the best book for brand new real estate agents to learn how to prospect, how to lead generate, how to find clients. He lays out in this book all of the different types of prospecting and the different mindsets required and the different approaches to prospecting and how that also applies to social media. He lays it out in a way that's very easy to understand, and I have yet to experience or see another book that's presented in such a way that this one is. It really is understanding how to snap your fingers and find business at will, which every salesperson needs. Number three, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger. Now, don't let the title fool you. This is one of the best-selling all-time classics in sales, and it's written by a person who was previously a professional baseball player who had made some failures in their life over the course of that career, and then as well, similarly in sales. And the way that this book is laid out is very easy to read. He tells stories based on each principle that he teaches in the book, but because of the way that it's written, it's easy to read the book once and say, I've read that book. But once you read it for the second or the third or the fourth time, you'll realize there's some really deep-rooted lessons in each of the chapters of that book. And depending where you're at in your sales career, you might come back to one specific chapter and read it a few times in order to understand this is the key that's missing from that part of my sales process. It's an absolute classic must read. Number four, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You know, you don't have to look very far to find this book in some very successful people's testimonial. I know Warren Buffett absolutely rants and raves about this book being the critical component to his success. Without it, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are. Your ability to communicate and influence people is absolutely critical. And no matter where your skill set is, how talented you are, or where you're starting from, understanding these key principles in this book is definitely going to launch your career, definitely going to increase what it is that you do on a daily and weekly basis. And it's funny because I read this book I think 3 different times. I even highlighted it, throughout the entire book. And there's one section at the end that says, public speaking is an essential part of your journey if you want to be successful. And, I got nervous and started sweating just reading that, knowing that it's something that I had to do. I had to conquer my fear, and learn how to communicate with people that I knew and people that I didn't know in a professional setting. And so I finally did sign up for the Dale Carnegie public speaking course, and it had made a huge, huge difference in my ability to speak on camera, to speak in public, to speak in front of a group, and to communicate one-on-one as well as on the phone. So I highly recommend Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Number 5, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Again, this one shows up time and time again in other people's testimonials, like Grant Cardone or Robert Kiyosaki, to some of the biggest names in real estate investing. And what I can say is this particular book is specifically a textbook. And there are very key components in this book that have been laid out in such a way that if you haven't touched on every single one of those elements in that book, you're not going to reach the level of success that you absolutely want. And there's a couple key things that I really learned from this that off the top of my head. Number one is you can improve your ability to make decisions. Your ability to make decisions is actually a skill and you can get better at it. The second thing I learned was persistence is like what carbon is to steel. That's what Earl Nightingale said in his condensed recording of Think and Grow Rich, which again I also recommend. But basically what that means is persist and you will succeed. It seems simple, but that one key concept has been the make or break difference in my career and in my life. Number 6, Zero Resistance Selling by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Now, Dr. Maxwell Maltz is actually best known for his book Psycho-Cybernetics. I recommend this particular book because he applies the same principles to specifically what it is that you're doing in sales. Now, he's best known for his work in what we call now the self-image. So he was actually, believe it or not, a plastic surgeon. And what he learned was some people that he would operate on would totally change their perspective of how they see themselves. And other people that he would operate on, it had literally no effect on how they would see themselves, even though physically they looked dramatically different after having the procedure done. And he wondered, why does this happen? So he took some in-depth study into why we see ourselves the way that we do and how that determines what type of results that we get in our life. And so he applies it to sales in this particular book, and he really presents key concepts that you can sort of understand, like basically cutting through objections like butter. You know, it's things like your body language, your posture, you know, how people are seeing you, what type of energy that you're putting off when you're in a sales situation. So again, highly recommend this book and other books written by Maxwell Maltz. Let me know in the comments if any of the books on this list are books that you've already read. Number 7, The EMyth by Michael Gerber. In this book, Michael Gerber talks about the difference between the manager, the technician, and the entrepreneur. And this is super, super important for real estate agents specifically because it's so easy to be stuck in that technician mindset or even the manager mindset where you're always working in your business, but you're not often enough working on your business. And of course, in order to take your business to the next level, you need to start working on your business as well. Examples of this might be finally looking to hire your first staff person, or maybe get your first buyer's agent, or maybe build and grow a team, or maybe reflect upon what lead generation sources are working best for you this year and how I can improve upon those next year. I highly recommend this book because it's a key foundational fundamental in how to build a business as a solopreneur starting out, but building it to more than having you doing everything in your business. Number 8, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This particular book for a lot of people is a real paradigm shift. It totally changes the way you see the world of money, and I highly recommend this book because after reading this, I finally understood that financial education is not taught in schools. Financial education is something that if you weren't taught that by your parents growing up, you actually need to go out and seek financial education in what type of investments work, where should I put my money, where can I put my money, how do I find opportunities, and how do I move forward in my life in order to retain and keep the money that I do earn. So once you read this book, I guarantee it, you will see life in the world of money different from the way that you did before. Robert Kiyosaki talks about in this book the cash flow quadrant. Number 1 being the employee, number 2 being self-employed, number 3 being a business owner, and number 4 being an entrepreneur. And you actually can be one of each of these quadrants throughout your real estate career, but most real estate agents fall into the self-employed category. You know, we are self-employed contractors as real estate agents, but if we want to become true business owners, we need to build a tangible asset. We need to build a real estate team in order to get to that point. And we won't become an entrepreneur until we are finally financially free in our business to the point where we now have enough access to capital that we can spend a lot of or most of our time concerned about where we put our money, which of course is a good problem to have and I think is a really good place to be at some point in your real estate career. Number 9, Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. Now, if you haven't looked into Earl Nightingale's content so far, he is an absolute legend. And this book is something that you can buy on paperback, but it's actually best in the form of audio. it is probably one of, if not the best-selling audio program of all time. And I've literally listened to this audio probably hundreds of times. And he puts some key concepts into his audio program, as well as his voice is very easy to listen to. But the key concepts in this is something that you can listen to it once, and you can listen to it for a few times later, and you'll get something different from it every single time, because each time that you listen to that program, you're going to be at a different place in your career so that you hear the message differently and you pick up on something new. It's something that you could listen to multiple times for the rest of your life and still not learn every piece and every part in it, because some of these principles are universal throughout life and definitely in business as well. Number 10, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book definitely made the list. It's probably one of the more modern books of all of the books written here. And in this book, James Clear lays out in a very simple and very easily digestible manner the concepts and ideas, all based around how to improve your habits. Now, you could literally read a few pages of this book and you will have an easy takeaway on how to improve your daily and weekly habits. And so again, this is a book that you'll constantly refer to, you'll constantly read and reread, but it is one of those books that it's okay to find a piece of information that works for you, put the book down and apply it to your life until that becomes a part of your regular schedule, and then come back and read it again. If you're looking to improve your weekly schedule, this is probably the top book to read in order to improve your time management skills. The 11th book on this list is The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. Funny enough, this book actually sat on my shelf for a number of years before I read it for the first time, and it wasn't until I constantly kept seeing it pop up in my news feed by several of my very successful real estate friends that I said, you know what, I probably should finally open that book and read it cover to cover. I did, and I realized that it's something that I should recommend to every single one of my teammates, because the concepts of this particular book are all about how to give more value to all of the people that you're in relations with, specifically in your business. And if you apply that to your business, you will get amazing results in your business, not just directly, but indirectly as well. And it is written in such a way that it is very easy to consume. It is written in form of story and dialogue. So I highly recommend this book. It's not only something that you'll learn a lot from, but you will actually find it a very enjoyable read as well. Now, don't get me wrong, reading and studying is absolutely essential for the success in your career, but be cautious not to get stuck in analysis paralysis. If you feel like you've been studying quite a bit, but you're at the point where you're ready to take action, or you're not sure what the next step is for you, or maybe you're looking for that next book, which one should I read first? Send me an email. I'd be happy to help. You can contact me at questionsformolinar@gmail.com. So if you like this video, hopefully you'll read those books, apply what you learned to your business, and you might be looking for more. And if that's the case, feel free to check out the other content here on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.